and maybe they are gaining muscle at a more rapid rate than I am. However, I'm able to gain muscle year round because I'm really never having to cut because I'm staying at a low body fat. Hello today. Welcome back to the Caffeinated Show with Charlie William Parks, but you may know me as, yeah, you probably know me as Charlie. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about how I stay at 10% body fat year round. What are the top 10 things I do to keep the pounds off, especially around the holidays? And part of this is trying to get you guys in shape and feeling good and, buff for the new year. And the other part of it is kind of spreading some holiday cheer, a little holiday noggin here. So let's talk about the top 10 things I do to stay at 10% body fat year round. I'm natty, don't take no drugs, anything like that. If you do, that's okay. I'm not judging you. And for you guys who maybe use the GLP-1 agonist, that's fine too. But I'm just natty, I'm not. So, whatever, good to know. Okay, number 10, I ate broccoli. Wait a minute, broccoli? Is that the secret to fat loss? Well, it might be. I like eating midday vegetables. And the reason is, first of all, fiber, kind of keeps everything moving and you can, not uncomfortable and bloated. The other reason is I find vegetables, I do enjoy them, the taste. I also find them very satiating. And a good way to not overeat is to eat things that are satiating by adding more raw, nutrient-dense things like broccoli. You can add a vegetable you like, I'm sure. You may find you eat a little bit less of something else. You might even be a little bit more satiated where you make a better choice. Number 10, eat broccoli or vegetable of your choice. Number 9, I walk, I don't run. I usually would say the other thing. I like to say to people, run, don't walk. But in this case, I walk, I do not run. Why do I walk and not run? Well, I talked about this a little bit on the How I Lost All the Weight video. I found running was beating up my joints, not the joint that you guys are talking about. I mean my, the elbows and the knees and the back, and made me feel older than I am, which I probably already seem. It was beating up my joints, and it was also making me really, really hungry. I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I can walk on an incline for 2 hours or hike around the world and I feel good. Running was making me way too hungry. The last thing with running is I found that the high intensity training was making my legs sore and it was interfering with my strength training. And by prioritizing strength training year round, that helps my overall body composition. It helps me stay focused. Listen, the more muscle you have, the better you look and the more fat you're burning anyway. So it's not a huge difference when you build more muscle in terms of calories burned, but it's something and every little bit helps. So I walk, I don't run. Here and there I'll jog, but for the most part, I'm not. Number 8, in the spirit of being able to train legs, I prioritize strength training year round. By that I mean I am eating carbohydrates and I am putting my carbohydrates, it's kind of like a sandwich. So I take my training and I put a bunch of carbs right before it or a couple of hours before and it'll get, not feel good to fuel the workout. And then I make sure within a couple of hours after the workout, there is also ample carbohydrate for recovery. Utilizing carbs and using carbs to make training better, I feel just helps everything. The other thing I do when I'm prioritizing strength training is I'm also deloading or taking active periods of rest where I'm saying to myself, okay, now I need to pull back a little bit. I need a more full recovery, which will allow me just kind of to train harder in the future. So thinking about your strength training, full range of motion, full ROM, slowing the eccentrics, really getting a deep stretch and all that stuff, making sure you're using the right amount of reps in reserve and combining that with perhaps the right fuel around it and the deloading as well can really, really amplify your ability to lose fat because you feel better, you look better, and you're more muscular. You always look better when you're more muscular. All right, number 7, I prioritize sleep. Don't quote me because I don't have it in front of me here, but there was a study I read not too long ago they did on men in the military. By reducing their sleep by even like 8 to 6 hours or 5 hours a night, it wasn't a huge decrease. They saw their testosterone go down by about 15%. If you want to really slow muscle gain and slow fat loss quickly, kill your testosterone, stop sleeping. Sleep is so important to just about everything in life. You really can't do any wrong by making your sleep better. In fact, it may be the one thing you can do, or one of the few things you can do, that just makes everything better. So, how could you do that? How could you prioritize your sleep? Well, you may find there is a time that you want to shoot to get in bed for. That's cool. You're gonna wanna cut off caffeine, this stuff at a certain point, so it's not keeping you up too late. The electronic stuff, the blue light, you can avoid it a few hours before bed, or you can try blue light glasses. Supplementing, certain supplements like the mineral magnesium, things like that, can promote relaxation. That might help. You can talk to your doctor about that as well. Making your sleep better is going to support everything you want to do in life. Number 6 thing I do year round, I eat eggs. I want to eat eggs. I eat all the eggs I can in the world. Just give me the eggs and put them in the blender and make my egg daiquiri to drink it all up. It's so good. Don't do that, actually. Don't ever eat raw eggs. It's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea. I should not. That could be taken out of context. That could be in big trouble. Don't eat raw eggs. However, eat eggs. Cook them. Unless you have an egg allergy, then don't eat eggs. I love eating eggs. They're good for you, great fats, good protein, all the good stuff, but also they're very satiating. I find, anecdotally, when I eat eggs, I'm just not as hungry after. There are other foods that are said to be satiating that I don't find quite as satiating. So I encourage you to eat eggs, and all the research today is pretty much saying eggs are pretty darn okay for you. So don't be too afraid of eggs. And if you are, ask your doctor, but that's still, I wouldn't be too afraid of eggs. The number 5 thing I do to stay at 10% body fat year round. This means the whole year. That's the sign language, I think, for it. I eat a lot of protein, probably too much protein, or so the studies say, but not recent studies. It's been said for a long time, you've always heard in kind of like the bodybuilding lore, pound a day, that would be a lot, a gram a day of protein per pound of body weight is kind of what would be suggested. I've also heard a lot, well, if you get a little bit less, you're probably okay still, and if you eat a little more, that might help you like in a cut. I find I eat probably even a little bit more than that, and anecdotally, only good things have happened. I have found it has supported strength gains. I have found I am more satiated the more protein I eat. I like eating protein. I like the taste of it. And lastly, if I'm eating protein and I am satiated, there's a good chance that I'm not eating something else that might not be so good for me. And it's a lot easier to make good choices when you're not starving. So I suggest you eat at least enough protein, if not a little too much. The number 4 thing I do in order to stay lean year round, flex dieting, not cheating. I talked about this a little bit in the last video as well. Flex dieting I love because it's not a diet, and it's very hard to sell you it in terms of the fancy new blah 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 diet where we only eat blah blah blah, or we avoid blah blah blah, or kind of like little magic pill. It's not a magic pill, but it is, the first law of thermogenesis, thermodynamics, calories in, calories out. And the reason I love flex dieting is if I want to eat more one day, I can eat less another day. And if I am in a cut, I know I'm tracking calories and eating less. If I wanted to be in a surplus, I could eat more as well. I'm tracking calories and I am flexing. I am flex dieting, meaning I'm allowing myself to eat more at times, and then there are some times I'm pulling back. People often do this naturally. You way overeat, and the next day you're like, oh, I ate too much yesterday. That's cool, but that also could create some bad psychological feelings like you cheated, you messed up, and now you're gonna punish yourself, you're gonna starve yourself, which messes up your blood sugar anyway, and then you end up eating more again. It's all not good. But if you kind of plan it, and that's the thing that I love about flex dieting, if I plan, I'm gonna eat a little less here, and then I'm gonna have a little more later, you don't feel like you're cheating. It's all part of the plan, which is awesome, and it brings me to number 3. The holiday cheer I wanted to bring you today. It's called holiday manipulation, only I don't intend to manipulate you, just your calories. One of the biggest places that people really mess up their eating is the holidays. I mean, you got Halloween, all that candy. You got Thanksgiving. My wife and I were making The cornbread, I made it this year. The sweet potatoes, I made it this year. The apple pie, they made it this year. It was really good. You get all this stuff, you eat more of it, and then it's like the next day. The next day is like day two, you're eating more of it. And before you know it, you've had the Halloween candy, which was too much. You're still eating that a week after because it's around the house. You've had the Thanksgiving leftovers for a week. And like now it's almost Christmas. And then, oh yeah, there's New Year's. And you've gained like 15 pounds, and the rest of the year you're gonna lose it until you do it all over again. So, what do I suggest you do? Well, the easiest thing you can do is to eat a little less around the holiday and allow yourself to enjoy the holiday. But be mindful of how much you're eating. It's gonna feel better physically and mentally. No one ever feels good, at least I certainly don't, going out of their mind, binging, and like now you can't move and you can't walk. It just kind of is a crummy feeling. But if you cut your calories a week before a little bit, or you create something where you're in a little bit of a deficit, and then you allow yourself to really enjoy yourself without going off the rails, you're gonna feel better physically and mentally because you're not gonna feel like you messed up. You're not gonna beat yourself up. And we don't want you to have an unhealthy relationship with food, especially if you're trying to maintain a very low body fat year round. Number two, what is the number two thing that I do to stay pretty lean, not like a bodybuilder on stage, 4% body fat, but 10, 9% body fat year round? Well, I'm gaintaining. This is gonna piss people off, it's a little controversial. Gaintaining, meaning I'm not always bulking, trying to gain muscle, and I really don't wanna be in a cut too much either because I like to eat food and I don't wanna eat less than I have to eat. So how do I gaintain? Well, I'm at a body fat that feels pretty good for me, and I try and stay at maintenance calories or even a little above them, not too far above them, maybe 5%, 10%, something like that. And I eat without the big surplus and I still work to build muscle. And because I'm a natty, as they say, and I'm not on, performance enhancing drugs, my ability to gain muscle with all those excess calories is probably a little more limited than an enhanced guy anyway. So I find by gaintaining, I am still building muscle, although I am building it slower. That's going to be the biggest objection to gaintaining. Well, you could be gaining a lot more muscle. I could be with a surplus, possibly. I don't know. However, I do know that if I'm bulking, I'm going to spend a lot more time cutting, which is going to be periods out of the year, months, where I'm not in maintenance calories. I'm in a deficit, which is really hard to build muscle in a deficit. Not that you can't, but for me, I've been training for 30 years about. It's gonna be real hard for me to build muscle in a deficit as a natty. We had Dr. Helms on the show. You should watch that interview with Dr. Eric Helms. We talk a lot about gaintaining. Dr. Helms' work on gaintaining has been fantastic. You should check out that episode, try and get you a bloop there. We talked about it. Maybe someone who's bulking and cutting is spending, I don't know, 8 months of the year in a bulk, gaining muscle, and 4 months of the year in a cut. And maybe they are gaining muscle at a more rapid rate than I am. However, I'm able to gain muscle year round because I'm really never having to cut because I'm staying at a low body fat. So I think when it comes to wanting to maintain low body fat year round, which people tend to want to do nowadays, nothing wrong with bulking and cutting. I think that's cool, but people seem to want to stay leaner if they can. I would say gaintain if it works for you, and if it doesn't, try something different. For me, it's part of what keeps me pretty lean year round. The number one thing I do to maintain low body fat year round and not be starving and all that fun stuff, I am constantly evolving. I have not arrived in perfect principle. I'm always open to new science and new research and new anecdotal evidence from both myself and other people I trust. There are people in the field that I trust their opinion. I like to be open-minded enough that cognitive dissonance doesn't make me block things out. But I also feel like, hey, you know what? If it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing too. And because I am constantly tweaking and finding, maybe this food makes me feel a little better. Maybe this is a substitute that's a little less calorically dense, still tastes delicious. I do the same thing with the recipes in the Caffeinated Kitchen, which I hope you guys are checking out. So, I'm a lifelong student, and I suggest that before you subscribe to an absolute, I suggest you don't subscribe to an absolute when it comes to diet. I suggest you find what works for you and you kind of go into it as an individual. And if you land on an absolute, if you're someone who can only eat, elk and you can't eat any fiber or vegetables and that's how you feel best, that ain't me, but hey, to each their own. If you can find that you leave enough mental room to make change in your physique, your attitude, your lifestyle, your training, your diet, all this stuff, the more open you are to change, the more likely you are to stumble on a change that might help you. So that's the number one thing I do is I'm constantly learning. I'm learning from people I trust. I'm learning from you guys. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, subscribe, share it with someone that you like. cwparks.com. Please sign up for our newsletter. We're going to have some amazing stuff coming in 2025. We got big fun things happening. We've got recipes, we've got books, and I really hope I see you there. Let me know what you want to hear about. Let me know what you think of this. What are your struggles? I hope I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. Become a super.